Everyone thought he was just distracted. Teachers called him inconsistent. His friends joked about how easily he lost track of conversations. His parents said he needed to try harder. But for Arav, it was more than that. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't careless. He just couldn't seem to stay with one thing long enough to finish it. One moment he was excited about a new goal. The next, he was scrolling through his phone, watching 3 videos at once, forgetting what he had planned. He had dreams, big ones, but they were buried under noise. And it wasn't just social media. It was everything. Notifications, messages, background music, half-read articles, unfinished tasks. His brain was always on, but never centered. At school, he'd start studying for a test, and 5 minutes later, he was thinking about a YouTube video he saw last night, or a random conversation, or a game. His room was filled with motivational quotes, but none of them helped. He wasn't failing, but he was falling, slowly, quietly, behind. He knew it too. Late at night, when the world went quiet, he would stare at the ceiling and feel the weight of it, the heaviness of almost doing something important, the guilt of time slipping through his fingers. And the worst part? He didn't know how to stop. His grades started to drop. Not drastically, just enough for people to notice. "You're smarter than this," his teacher said. What happened? He didn't have an answer. At home, his father grew quiet. His mother asked him to put his phone away during dinner. Even his little sister, who once looked up to him, stopped asking for help with homework. The shift wasn't sudden. It crept in like a fog. At first, Arav thought it was just a phase, a slump, something that would pass. But it didn't. He started skipping study sessions, told himself he'd catch up tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into next week, then the night before exams. He couldn't focus on a full page without checking his phone, and every time he did, he hated himself a little more. One evening, he overheard his parents talking behind a half-closed door. His father sounded tired. "He has so much potential," he said, "but if he keeps living like this, he'll lose everything." That word, lose, stuck in Arav's mind. That night he sat in front of his mirror and looked at himself for the first time in weeks. Really looked. He didn't see a failure, but he saw someone slipping, slowly. And he knew if he didn't take control, distraction would steal everything he ever wanted. The question echoed in his mind. How do I get my mind back? The next morning, Arav didn't open his phone. It wasn't a big decision. It was just a moment of silence. For the first time in months, he sat with a notebook instead of a screen. He didn't write goals. He didn't make a plan. He wrote what he felt. "I'm tired of chasing everything and catching nothing." That sentence became his starting point. He searched for answers, not on social media, but in books, in podcasts, in people who had walked the same path. One idea kept repeating. Focus isn't about forcing attention. It's about removing noise. So he started small. He turned off notifications, deleted 2 apps he knew were stealing hours from his day, made one rule: no screen in the first hour of waking up. The first day was awkward. The second was worse. But by day 4, something shifted. He found himself reading longer, breathing slower, listening more. He chose one goal: improve his concentration. That was it. Not to ace a test, not to become a top student, just to focus. He scheduled 25 minutes of deep work a day, a single timer, a single task. At first, his mind fought it, but he kept showing up, and slowly, the fog began to lift. If you've ever felt like distraction is winning, drop a like, share this story, and subscribe, because you're not alone, and your focus is worth fighting for. Weeks passed. Eirav didn't become a new person overnight, but something had changed. He no longer woke up feeling guilty. He had a structure, a rhythm. He didn't always follow it perfectly, but even trying felt like a win. His mind, once scattered across 100 tabs, began to hold thoughts longer. He could now read a full chapter without checking his phone. He could sit with silence without reaching for something to fill it. His classmates noticed, not because he spoke more, because he listened more. In class, he wasn't the loudest, but his questions had depth. His assignments came in on time. He wasn't chasing extra credit. He was reclaiming his own attention. His parents didn't say much, but their eyes softened. His father nodded more. His mother began placing an extra roti on his plate again, quietly, like a sign of silent pride. Eirav started journaling every night, 1 line a day. What did I give my attention to today? Some days the answer disappointed him, but most days it made him proud. He realized focus wasn't a superpower. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about noticing when you're present and when you're not, and choosing to return again and again. One day his teacher handed back an assignment. It had a small note at the top corner. Your writing is sharp. Keep going. Eirav read it 3 times, not because he craved praise, but because it felt earned. This wasn't luck. It wasn't a last-minute push. It was weeks of small, invisible choices stacking up quietly. He didn't share his progress online. He didn't post before and after pictures. He didn't tell his friends how he'd changed. But they noticed. One of them asked, "How did you get so consistent?" Eirav smiled. "I stopped trying to do everything at once. I chose one thing and stayed with it." His friend laughed. "That's it?" "That's everything," Eirav replied. He began applying the same mindset to other parts of his life. When he studied, he studied. When he rested, he rested. No multitasking, no guilt. Even during stressful weeks, he didn't fall apart, because his brain wasn't overloaded anymore. It was trained. Not perfectly, but patiently. And that patience, that quiet structure, became the difference between almost doing something and actually finishing it. Eirav wasn't trying to impress anyone now. He was just showing up every day for his future. A few months later, Eirav stood in front of his school's final year class. Not as a topper, not as a guest, but as someone who had turned a quiet corner in his life. The school counselor had asked him to share his experience, not of academic success, but of something more rare, regaining focus in a distracted world. He stood quietly for a moment before speaking. No slides, no notes, just one sentence to begin. "I used to live in pieces until I learned how to pay attention." He told them about the fog, the scattered thoughts, the guilt, and then the shift, the first small change, the daily habits, the slow invisible wins. He spoke about how attention wasn't just a tool for studying, but the foundation for every decision, every relationship, every dream. Focus, he said, isn't just about saying yes to one thing. It's about saying no to everything that doesn't matter. When he finished, the room was silent. Not because they didn't care, but because every student in that room knew exactly what he meant. Later that night, he opened his journal to the same question he asked himself every day. What did I give my attention to today? He smiled at his answer. Because now it wasn't just time he was managing. It was his life. Now it's your turn. What's one thing in your life right now that deserves your full attention, but isn't getting it?